Welcome back to the ultimate sports talk show, Baseball Fanatics. Let me start the broadcast by echoing what is currently screaming through the mind of every true fan. Hey, what the hell is up with this garbage news from Korea? As soon as I read it, I almost threw my beer at the TV. Today, we are diving deep into a completely unbelievable and frankly ridiculous farce that is taking the baseball world by storm. In an incredibly bizarre twist, the humiliating news of South Korea's catastrophic failure and elimination at the Soccer World Cup is somehow desperately spreading into the sacred realm of Major League Baseball. It is a situation teetering on a razor's edge of absolute absurdity. The match reality, average stats versus unhinged delusions. Let us strip away the noise and break down the actual game developments with cold, hard facts. The Los Angeles Dodgers faced off against the San Diego Padres, resulting in a 5-2 victory for the Padres that finally put a merciful end to their miserable 8-game losing streak. During this matchup, Padres South Korean player Sung-Mun Song delivered a purely average performance, managing just 1 hit in 3 at-bats and securing his first stolen base since transferring teams. Any analyst looking at the StatCast data knows this is nothing more than a baseline mediocre showing. Yet, against all logic, the South Korean sports media has spiraled into an absolute frenzy of delusion. They are loudly and shamelessly proclaiming today is Shohei's birthday, but he couldn't get a hit. Sung-Mun Song overwhelmingly outshone Shohei. Their broadcasting studios are drowning in a feverish, detached from reality atmosphere, absurdly declaring that the day Korean baseball completely surpasses Japan is just around the corner. To compare a player producing a single, pedestrian hit to the ultimate two-way player, a literal god of the baseball world who routinely shatters barrel rate expectations, is beyond laughable. It is an insult to the game. The cold American truth, a massive cognitive gap. In stark contrast to this unhinged and manufactured excitement, the reaction from the American sports media and hardcore MLB fans has been absolutely freezing. The entire baseball community is looking at this narrative and asking the exact same blunt questions. Didn't South Korea just get disastrously eliminated in the World Cup? Who on earth is Sung-Mun Song? Here in the MLB, where metrics like ERA, whiff rate, and elite ops dictate true value on the roster, we only recognize the absolute apex of Asian talent. We only bow to living legends like the mound-dominating Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who fights a lonely war for his team, and the otherworldly Shohei Ohtani. This stark contrast brutally exposes the massive, unbridgeable cognitive gap between the Korean media's desperate hype and the harsh, elite reality of the MLB's home country. The tension in the baseball world right now is thicker than a full count in the bottom of the 9th inning with the bases loaded, and the absolute sheer disbelief is echoing loudly from none other than the legendary Boston Red Sox slugger, Dave Ortiz, appearing on a nationally syndicated ESPN broadcast. The man universally beloved by fans and feared by pitchers, as Big Papi did not hold back a single ounce of his immense frustration when confronted with this fabricated and entirely delusional media narrative out of South Korea. I have to ask you, the fans sitting at home, how can anyone who truly understands the grinding, unforgiving reality of a 162-game season actually digest this garbage? Ortiz, a towering titan who practically lived in the batter's box and terrorized opposing bullpens, immediately dissected this embarrassing situation with the surgical, cold-blooded precision of a true insider. During the broadcast, Ortiz explicitly stated that when he first heard the news of this absurd comparison out of South Korea, he genuinely thought it was some kind of elaborate, poorly written joke meant for a comedy show. However, as he looked deeper into the actual reports and saw the sheer desperation of the narrative, his initial amusement quickly turned into a profound sense of sadness for the deeply compromised state of their sports journalism.
Listen to me, I am a pure hitter at heart. And when you are a hitter trying to survive in the major leagues, you do not look at the flashy, patriotic headlines. You look directly at the cold, hard numbers to see the unfiltered truth. Ortiz brutally pointed out the undeniable mathematically proven reality of Sungmun Song's performance, noting with absolute disdain that a meager .239 batting average accompanied by a pathetic single home run in the major leagues is absolutely not the statistical profile of anyone who can be seriously called a star player. To put it in the modern analytical terms that govern today's game, a player with those abysmal numbers possesses a laughable hard hit rate and a practically non-existent barrel rate, completely failing to generate the elite offensive metrics required to even remain on a competitive roster, let alone be crowned a hero. Ortiz continued his passionate, fiery teardown by shifting his focus to the sheer, unadulterated disrespect shown to the ultimate two-way player, Shohei Ohtani. Shohei is an absolute monster on the field. The guy pitches with the dominance of a Cy Young contender. He steps into the box and hits with an elite ops, and on top of all that, unmatched. Generational talent. He actually genuinely cares for his teammates in the dugout. Ortiz made it explicitly, undeniably clear that bringing up a desperately struggling player like Sungmun Song of the Padres, a guy fighting just to stay relevant, to somehow compare him to a literal god of the baseball world like Shohei Ohtani demonstrates a catastrophic, fundamental lack of understanding of this sport. It is incredibly offensive to anyone who understands the grueling, bone-crushing reality of achieving a high KB percent on the mound while simultaneously destroying opposing pitchers' expected error at the plate. Ortiz then delivered a final, razor-sharp piece of advice that cuts straight through the noise and to the core of this entire embarrassing debacle. If you truly want to be recognized and respected in this ruthless league, you need to quietly and relentlessly accumulate your statistics on the grass and dirt of the field, exactly like what the Japanese players are doing day in and day out. He firmly warned the media and the players against using television studios to artificially paint a fake, unearned picture of success, emphasizing that baseball is a sport of truth where the StatCast cameras miss absolutely nothing.
Following the devastating surgical teardown by David Ortiz, the sheer level of righteous fury vibrating through the baseball community has only escalated to unprecedented heights. Ladies and gentlemen, we now turn our attention to one of the most intimidating presences to ever stand on a major league mound. A man who owns 5 Cy Young awards and knows exactly what it takes to completely dominate opposing hitters and manipulate their swing rate. Yes, I am talking about the legendary southpaw himself, the big unit, Randy Johnson. Appearing on a prominent American sports radio program, Johnson unleashed an absolute, uncompromising roar of pure anger regarding this completely delusional narrative manufactured by the Korean media. When asked by the host for his raw, unfiltered thoughts on the subject, the big unit did not hold back a single blistering word, attacking the premise with the same ferocity he used to attack the strike zone.
Listen to me, are the guys writing these garbage articles completely out of their minds? Who in the world is Sungmun Song? We are talking about a guy who signed a measly 4-year contract worth $15 million, which is literally just a tiny fraction of what Shohei commands. Do not make me laugh. Are these people suffering from some kind of collective delusion, trying to artificially inflate the value of a player who barely impacts the game?
The big unit's sheer frustration is palpable, slicing right through the media noise like one of his legendary unhittable fastballs that used to shatter bats and egos alike. He continued by exposing the pathetic underlying reasons behind this sudden, desperate media push, linking it directly to another sport entirely and calling out the hypocrisy.
Look, I am retired now, and my absolute greatest joy is just sitting back with a cold beer and watching elite sports on my television since the Soccer World Cup was hosted right here in the United States. I watched the tournament very closely, and let me be brutally honest, South Korea's performance on that pitch was absolutely terrible. Japan, on the other hand, went toe-to-toe and played completely evenly with global powerhouses like the Netherlands and Sweden. While South Korea pathetically lost to South Africa, they are not even in the same stratosphere of quality. So why do they constantly and desperately try to cling to Japan as if they are some kind of destined eternal rival?
The absolute bluntness of a true legend who has no time for fabricated rivalries. But Johnson did not stop there. He fiercely pivoted back to the diamond, annihilating the ridiculous notion of comparing these struggling players to the absolute pinnacle of baseball royalty and tearing apart the defensive liabilities that plague the game.
Not to mention, they are in the middle of talking about their disastrous Soccer World Cup, and suddenly they aggressively steer the conversation straight into baseball. Is this just because they lost so miserably in soccer that they are intentionally trying to shift to another sport just to desperately save face? Forget the name Sungmun Song entirely. It is just pathetic. The name they really dragged out is Hee-seong Kim. This is the exact same guy who continuously made horrific, amateurish errors during the games where Yoshinobu was pitching his heart out and executing a flawless quality start. His defensive blunders were so disastrously bad that the Korean press themselves actually had to write formal articles apologizing to Yamamoto. And now suddenly they have the audacity to call this guy a treasure? I honestly do not even know who they are talking about anymore.
The heat in the studio is absolutely scorching. The big unit then addressed the highly controversial all-star voting situation, tearing into the integrity of the process with the ferocity of an ace pitcher viciously protecting his pristine era from unearned runs.
Regarding the fact that Hee-seong Kim was sitting at 4th place in the all-star voting, I can only laugh at the utter absurdity of it. The fact that a player who is currently rotting away in AAA playing minor league ball is somehow ranked above massive established stars on the all-star roster is clear, undeniable proof of organized, fraudulent voting back when I was competing. The all-star game was a sacred place strictly reserved for those who could actually prove their true ability on the field. What we are seeing here is not baseball. It is an absolute joke.
A devastating reality check that completely destroys the illusion. And finally, Johnson perfectly encapsulated the breathtaking generational talent of the Japanese superstars, validating exactly why they reign supreme in the modern era and dominate the sabermetric leaderboards.
Shohei is the kind of historic, once-in-a-lifetime baseball player that you can count on the fingers of one hand, pitching, hitting, and no matter what role he takes, he stands at the absolute pinnacle of this era. Yoshinobu is exactly the same. His elite ball control and ability to effortlessly induce a massive whiff rate is incredibly reminiscent of a young Greg Maddux. The fact that Japan continuously produces these kinds of players, prospects with the unbelievable strike zone discipline and elite exit velocities of stars like Kazuma Okamoto or Munetaka Murakami is not a coincidence at all. It is the direct, undeniable result of a relentless, enduring training culture.
The righteous indignation echoing across the baseball landscape does not stop with the pitchers, ladies and gentlemen, following the absolutely scorched earth reality check delivered by the legendary Randy Johnson. We now pivot to the ultimate voice of leadership, respect, and unparalleled professionalism in the modern era of baseball. I am talking about the iconic former captain of the New York Yankees, the man who defined an entire generation of winning, Derek Jeter. Speaking on his widely popular podcast, R2C2, Jeter provided a masterclass in dissecting this completely absurd situation, shifting the focus to the sacred integrity of the all-star selection process and the undeniable cold-blooded truth that the diamond always reveals. While he did not shout his razor-sharp, calculated breakdown of this media-manufactured circus was just as devastating as a 100 mph fastball painting the inside corner.
I have to be completely honest with you guys. When I first heard this news being circulated, I legitimately almost spit out a mouthful of my coffee. I could not believe what I was reading. Sitting here having a conversation about a player who is currently struggling in AAA, a minor league player, somehow miraculously standing at 4th place in the Major League All-Star voting. Back when I was competing and wearing the pinstripes, earning a spot on that All-Star roster was the ultimate validation of your absolute dominance. It was undeniable proof that you had been the undisputed ace or the premier hitter of your league for an entire half season. consistently delivering quality start after quality start or maintaining an elite ops against the most ruthless pitching in the world. Seeing this kind of blatant manipulation happening now genuinely makes me feel that my deep pride and profound respect for the All-Star institution is being deeply injured and compromised.
The captain's words cut straight to the bone. You cannot simply manufacture greatness with an organized social media campaign when the StatCast cameras are tracking every single movement, every chase rate, and every minuscule metric on the field. Jeter then seamlessly transitioned to the player who actually defines greatness in our current era, completely shutting down the ridiculous comparisons engineered by the desperate South Korean media.
When you talk about a truly once-in-a-lifetime talent, Shohei is the definitive answer to every single fantasy anyone has ever had about what makes a great baseball player. He is the ultimate two-way player. You simply cannot comprehend the physical and mental toll it takes to generate an unparalleled barrel rate at the plate and then turn around to annihilate hitters with a devastating sweeper that maximizes whiff rate, possesses a permanent advantage and edge over everyone else because he fundamentally altered the limitations of the sport.
Jeter then delivered his final lethal blow to the fabricated hype surrounding the struggling prospects pushed by the media, specifically addressing the reality of Hee-seong Kim's situation with the cold, unyielding truth of a seasoned veteran.
Hee-seong Kim and really any player trying to find their footing, I only want to say one thing. In the game of baseball, you have to prove your worth entirely by your results on the grass and the dirt. Every single desperate attempt to pump votes into the All-Star ballot or rely on an overzealous media to sing your praises will only result in fake, hollow numbers. Artificial statistics and manufactured headlines absolutely cannot hide the brutal truth that he simply has not reached that elite level yet. You cannot hide a poor K percent or a disastrous lob percent behind a loud television broadcast. Furthermore, this lack of accountability is exactly what leads to the kind of embarrassing offensive deadlocks we are seeing from players like Tucker when you hand out a 38 billion yen contract. Seeing a player completely lose their strike zone discipline and become an absolute eyesore at the plate is frankly ridiculous and leaves me completely speechless. The game always knows the truth and the data will eventually expose everyone.
The Captain-S icy measured words have left the studio paralyzed, but we are not done stripping away the layers of this manufactured delusion, ladies and gentlemen, to take this conversation into the deepest trenches of pitching psychology. We bring in a man who fought his way out of poverty in the Dominican Republic to capture 3 Cy Young Awards through sheer grit. The one, the only Pedro Martinez! Speaking with a profound sense of cultural understanding, but matching it with an unforgiving standard of excellence, Pedro takes a blowtorch to the Korean media's reckless hype. He breaks down how this narrative utterly disrespects the baseball gods and destroys the holy, unspoken bond between a pitcher and his infield.
Let me be completely honest with you all. When this news out of Seoul crossed my desk, my initial reaction was not just disbelief, as it was a feeling that these people are being incredibly reckless and entirely too impatient. To declare that a player has somehow completely surpassed Shohei or overwhelmed Japan based on one solitary, deeply pedestrian hit in an early July game is the absolute height of absurdity. Look at where I come from. I migrated to the United States from the Dominican Republic with nothing but a glove and a dream. I know exactly what it feels like to have an entire nation's pride resting squarely on your shoulders. I understand the intoxicating euphoria when a player from your homeland makes a splash on the biggest stage in the world, but let me draw a clear, unbending line right here. Using that patriotic pride to cheapen or disrespect the name of Shohei Ohtani is a boundary you do not cross. It shows a total failure of reverence for what is truly sacred in this game. Shohei is a rare, terrifying anomaly who has quietly and relentlessly accumulated elite, historic statistics over multiple seasons. He didn't become a god overnight through a loud media broadcast. He did it by maintaining an astronomical ops while simultaneously wiping out the best hitters in the world with a devastating pitch mix. He is the definitive two-way player, an absolute monster of consistency. To use him as a cheap prop to elevate a struggling player who is barely keeping his head above water is downright insulting to the sport. But as a pitcher, what truly makes my blood boil is the situation regarding Hee-seong Kim and the absolute betrayal of the pitcher's sanctuary. When you stand alone on that mound, your entire reality is dictated by a fragile ecosystem of metrics like your ERA, your FIP, and your lob percent in that high-stress environment. The absolute peace of mind provided by the defenders behind you is literally everything. Seeing the amateurish, completely unacceptable defensive blunders Kim committed while Yoshinobu Yamamoto was out there fighting in absolute isolation is sickening. For a pitcher executing a beautiful game plan, pulling off elite whiff rates and doing everything humanly possible to secure a quality start, having a defender behind you drop routine grounders or panic on simple double plays is like getting stabbed in the back. It directly compromises a pitcher's FIP and inflates their ERA with unearned stress. The Korean press themselves had to officially issue a public apology to Yamamoto because the defense was so utterly unwatchable. Yet, their studio hosts now call him a national treasure. Give me a break. The cold, unyielding data tracked by StatCast doesn't care about your national pride or your television ratings. If you cannot consistently secure the baseball and provide stability on the diamond, you do not belong in the major leagues, period.